All right, deep divers, let's cut the crap and get right into it. We're diving deep into the goddamn Academy Awards, you know? That whole Best Picture circus. Those golden statues they hand out to movies that are supposed to make us laugh, cry, or sometimes just scratch our heads and wonder what the fuck were they thinking? We've got a stack of Wikipedia excerpts to sift through, so let's see what juicy bits we can dig up.
It's fascinating how much the award has evolved over the years, It started as Outstanding Picture and then morphed into Best Picture.
So who the hell actually gets this golden dick? Is it the director, the actors prancing around, or the poor bastards sweating their asses off behind the scenes?
It's actually the producers who get the award.
So the money men get the glory. Makes sense, I guess. But how the hell does Best Picture line up with Best Director? I mean, they usually go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? It's like peanut butter and jelly, but even that combo gets messed up sometimes. There have been 6 instances where Best Picture went to a film whose director wasn't even nominated.
6.
Yeah. Argo and Green Book are 2 examples of that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of makes you wonder what the hell the voters are thinking.
Yeah, that's some serious bullshit. It shows you how subjective these awards can be. It's not always about the director's vision. Sometimes it's about the film's overall impact. You know how it resonates with people? Speaking of impact, remember that La La Land Moonlight fiasco?
Oh, yeah.
Poor bastards got the wrong envelope. Faye Dunaway must have been high as a kite.
That was a classic fuck-up, for sure. Even the most prestigious events can have their share of behind-the-scenes chaos. It makes you wonder what other shenanigans go down that we never hear about.
Right, like who's slipping who envelopes full of cash to get their movie nominated? Just kidding, maybe. Anyway, let's talk about genres. It pisses me off that no animated film has ever won Best Picture. I mean, Beauty and the Beast up Toy Story 3, they were all robbed. And only one horror movie, Silence of the Lambs. What a load of crap.
Yeah, it's true. The Academy has definitely favored certain genres over others. Dramas and biopics seem to be their go-to choices. But maybe things are changing. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, winning last year, was a big step in the right direction.
It was a genre-bending mindfuck that defied categorization.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. But what about foreign flicks? How many non-English movies have even gotten a sniff at the Best Picture award?
You might be surprised to know that there have been 17 non-English language films nominated.
17.
And Parasite even snagged the award in 2019, becoming the first non-English film to do so.
Shit, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So the Academy isn't completely ignoring the rest of the world. Good to know.
What about movies made outside the good old US of A? Have any of those ever won Best Picture?
10 films financed outside the U.S. have taken home the Golden Statue.
10.
Interestingly, 8 of those were funded at least partially by the UK. The other 2, The Artist and Parasite, were financed in France and South Korea, respectively. So basically, you need some British cash if you want to make a winning foreign film.
Got it. What about the rating? Have any family-friendly movies ever won Best Picture?
Well, since 1968, most Best Picture winners have been rated R. Only one G-rated film, Oliver, and one X-rated film later changed to an R, Midnight Cowboy, have won the award. Interestingly, they won back-to-back in 1968 and 1969.
Huh. That's a hell of a swing from G to X. I bet there's a lot of PG and PG-13 winners, though, right?
You're right. 11 have won with a PG rating, the first being Patton in 1970, and the most recent being Driving Miss Daisy in 1989. And another 11 with a PG-13 rating, starting with The Last Emperor in 1987, and most recently Codia in 2021.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this shit. What about sequels? Has any sequel bullshit ever managed to win Best Picture?
It's rare, but it has happened. 2 sequels have won Best Picture, Godfather Part 2 and Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Their trilogies are the only ones to have all 3 films nominated for Best Pictures, making the Godfather series the only one with multiple Best Picture wins. Damn, those are some heavy hitters. So sequels can be good, but they don't often get the Academy's love, huh?
That's right. It's tough to capture that same magic twice. Only 9 sequels have ever been nominated for Best Picture, including Toy Story 3 Mad Max, Fury Road and Top Gun, Maverick. Those 3 are the only sequels nominated without any of their predecessors getting a nod.
Interesting. What about remakes? Have any of those copycat motherfuckers ever won Best Picture?
A couple have.
Really?
The 1959 Ben-Hur is a remake of the 1925 silent film, and both were based on the 1880 novel.
Wow.
And The Departed, which won in 2006, is a remake of the 2002 Hong Kong film Infernal Affairs. That makes it the first remake of a non-English film to win Best Picture.
So Hollywood isn't above recycling a good story, huh? What other remakes have been
But
nominated?
there have been a few others. Cleopatra in 1963 was a remake of the 1934 version. Then you have A Star is Born in 2018, which followed the 1937 film of the same name, and Little Women in 2019, based on the 1933 film and the 1868 novel.
Damn, they really love remaking A Star is Born, don't they? Guess some stories are just timeless.
Indeed. We also can't forget True Grit, nominated in 2010, which was the second adaptation of the 1968 novel following the 1969 film. And speaking of multiple adaptations, 4 nominees in the 94th ceremony were based on previously filmed material. Cody, Dune, Nightmare Alley, and West Side Story.
Hold on, didn't the original West Side Story win Best Picture?
You're right. The 2021 version is actually the second adaptation of the same source material to be nominated for Best Picture after 1962's Mutiny on the Bounty, which was also a remake.
Oh, wow.
And get this, Codier is the second remake of a non-English film to win Best Picture.
Damn, so remakes are kind of a big deal in the Best Picture race. Let's shift gears a bit. How many silent films have won this shit? I'm guessing only a couple, right?
You got it. Only 2. The very first Best Picture award went to the 1927 silent film Wings. Then fast forward to 2011, and The Artist takes home the award. That's the first mostly silent film. There's one scene with dialogue and a dream sequence with sound effects to win since Wings.
Hold it, so The Artist is basically a silent film, and it won Best Picture. That's fucking wild.
It is. And it was also the first silent nominee since 1928's The Patriot. Plus, it was the first black and white winner since 1960's The Apartment.
Wow, that's a lot of history packed into one film. Speaking of old movies, are any of the Best Picture winners lost to time?
Thankfully, no Best Picture winner has disappeared completely. But some, like All Quiet on the Western Front and Lawrence of Arabia, only exist in versions altered from their original release. That's usually because of editing for reissues, though archivists have been working to restore them.
So even winning a damn Oscar doesn't guarantee your film's safety. That's a shame.
It is. Some other winners and nominees are only widely available in altered versions. Tom Jones was like that until the Criterion Collection and the British Film Institute reissued it in 2018, and Star Wars is another example.
Damn, even Star Wars got messed with.
Yep. And on a sadder note, The Patriot from 1928 is the only Best Picture nominee that is mostly lost. Only about a third of it still exists.
Damn, that's a real loss. Any other nominees in danger of disappearing?
Well, there's The Racket, also from 1928, which was thought to be lost for years. Luckily, a print was found in Howard Hughes's archives, and it's been restored. But the only complete copies of East Lynne from 1931 and The White Parade from 1934 are at the UCLA Film Archive.
So we need to keep our fingers crossed that those films stay safe and sound. Now let's talk about this woke shit the Academy is pushing. What's the deal with these new diversity standards?
They're called Academy Aperture 2025, and they're a set of representation and inclusion standards that films need to meet to be eligible for Best Picture, starting with the 96th Academy Awards for films released in 2024.
So what kind of bullshit do they have to include? I hope it doesn't ruin the fucking movies.
There are 4 standards, and a film needs to meet at least 2 of them. On-screen representation themes and narratives, creative leadership and project team, industry access and opportunities, and audience development.
Okay, so basically they want more diversity on screen and behind the scenes.
Exactly. It's about providing more opportunities for underrepresented groups like racial and ethnic minorities, women, LGBTQ plus folks, and people with disabilities.
Sounds like they're trying to make Hollywood less of a sausage fest. I guess that's not a bad thing.
These standards only apply to the Best Picture category, though. They don't affect eligibility for other awards.
So they're really serious about shaking up the Best Picture race, but they don't want to mess with the other awards. That's interesting.
It is, and for the 94th and 95th Academy Awards, filmmakers had to submit a confidential form about inclusion standards, but didn't have to meet them. It was a way of getting everyone on board with the idea before it became mandatory.
So it's like a test run. Sneaky bastards. But hey, maybe this will lead to some fresh and unique films getting nominated.
It's certainly possible. The Academy's goal is to ensure a wider range of stories and perspectives are recognized and celebrated.
All right, that's a decent chunk of Oscar history for you. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the big players in this game. Who are the individuals and production companies that have racked up the most nominations and wins in the Best Picture category?
When it comes to individuals, Steven Spielberg holds the record for the most Best Picture nominations, with a whopping 13 nominations.
13. Damn, that guy's a powerhouse. Did he win all of them?
He only won once for Schindler's List, but 13 nominations is still an impressive feat. Now, if we're talking about nominations without a win, Kathleen Kennedy takes the crown with 8.
Damn, 8 nominations and no wins. That's gotta sting. Who are the biggest winners in this category?
Sam Spiegel and Saul Zaentz are tied for the most wins, each with 3 Best Picture awards.
3. That's a pretty exclusive club.
It is. And we can't forget Clint Eastwood, Arthur Freed Desati Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, Bronco Lustig, Albert S. Reddy, and Robert Wise, who have each won Best Picture twice.
So those are the names to remember in the Best Picture Hall of Fame. Now let's talk about the production companies. Who were the big dogs in this race?
When it comes to wins, Columbia Pictures and United Artists are tied for the most with 12 wins each. But if we're talking nominations, 20th Century Studios takes the cake with a staggering 64 nominations.
64? That's like a fucking dynasty.
It is. And on the flip side, Focus Features has the most nominations without a win, sitting at 16 nominations.
Damn, 16 nominations and still no wins. That's rough.
It is, but it also shows how competitive this category is. There are a lot of great films out there vying for that top spot.
All right, deep divers, that was a whirlwind tour of the Best Picture landscape. Now let's get down to brass tacks and take a closer look at some specific winners and nominees. We'll start with the Roaring Twenties and work our way through cinematic history decade by decade. Get ready for some juicy insights, surprising facts, and maybe even a few laughs along the way.
All right, let's kick things off with the first ever Best Picture winner, Wings.
Wings.
This silent war epic from 1927, starring Clara Bow, tells the story of 2 fighter pilots during World War I who are both in love with the same woman.
Sounds like some classic love triangle bullshit. Was it any good?
It was a massive hit back then. People raved about the aerial photography. They were doing some seriously groundbreaking stuff for the time, especially with those realistic battle sequences.
So basically it was Top Gun with biplanes, right?
Well, there are definitely parallels. Both films capture the thrill and danger of aerial combat, and the love triangle adds an emotional layer to the story. But Wings is also a product of its time, reflecting the anxieties and uncertainties of a world still reeling from the horrors of World War I.
That's a good point. I guess it's easy to forget how much the world has changed since then. What other movies were nominated that year?
Only 2 others. Seventh Heaven, a romantic drama set in Paris during World War I, and The Racket, a crime film that took on police corruption.
Interesting. So right from the start, they had a mix of genres. Let's jump ahead to the next decade. What kind of movies were winning Best Picture in the 1930s?
The 1930s saw a shift towards more sophisticated storytelling and the rise of the studio system. One standout from this era is All Quiet on the Western Front, a powerful anti-war film based on Erich Maria Remarque's novel.
That sounds pretty heavy. What's it about?
It follows a group of young German soldiers on the Western Front during World War I and doesn't shy away from the brutal reality of war. It's a powerful meditation on the psychological toll that war takes on individuals and the futility of conflict.
Damn, that's intense. Did it win any other awards?
It won Best Picture and Best Director for Louis Milestone, making it the first film to win both awards. It was a critical and commercial success and remains a landmark achievement in filmmaking.
So basically, it's a must-watch for any film buff.
Got it. What about comedies? Were any of those winning Best Picture in the 1930s?
One of the most beloved comedies from this era is It Happened One Night, directed by Frank Capra.
I think I've heard of that one. Isn't it about a spoiled heiress who runs away and falls in love with a reporter? You got it. It's a classic screwball comedy full of witty banter and charming performances from Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. It was the first film to sweep the 5 major Academy Awards: Best Picture Director, Actress, and Screenplay.
Damn, a clean sweep. Guess it really struck a chord with audiences back then. What other notable Best Picture winners came out of the 1930s?
Another significant film is Gone with the Wind, the epic Civil War drama released in 1939. It tells the story of Scarlett O'Hara, a headstrong Southern belle, and her tumultuous journey through love, loss, and survival during and after the Civil War.
Oh yeah, that's the one with the burning Atlanta scene, right? I bet that looked amazing back then.
It was groundbreaking for its time, with impressive special effects and a sweeping score. The film's depiction of the Civil War and Reconstruction era, while controversial for its romanticized view of slavery and the antebellum South, remains a powerful and enduring cinematic experience.
It must have been a long-ass movie, though.
It's almost 4 hours long, but it was a massive success, breaking box office records and becoming a cultural phenomenon.
4 hours. Damn, I'd need an intermission and a bucket of popcorn to get through that. Let's move on to the 1940s. What gems did that decade bring us?
The 1940s brought us a wave of films grappling with World War II and its aftermath. One standout is Casablanca, a romantic drama set in Morocco during the war. It stars Humphrey Bogart as Rick Blaine, a cynical American expatriate who runs a nightclub, and Ingrid Bergman as Ilsa Lund, his former lover, who unexpectedly reappears in his life with her husband, a Czech resistance leader.
Sounds like another love triangle. They end up together? No spoilers.
You'll have to watch it to find out. But Casablanca is more than just a love story. It's about sacrifice, duty, and choosing the greater good in the face of personal desire. It's a film that resonates deeply with audiences even today, and its iconic dialogue, "Here's looking at you, kid," remains instantly recognizable.
All right, I'm adding it to my watch list. What other war-related films won Best Picture in the 1940s?
The Best Years of Our Lives, released in 1946, won acclaim for its realistic portrayal of soldiers returning home from World War II and the challenges they faced in readjusting to civilian life.
That must have hit home for a lot of people back then.
It did. The film captured the anxieties and hopes of a nation transitioning back to peacetime, and it did so with honesty and sensitivity. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture Director for William Wyler and Actor for Frederick March.
Sounds like a powerful film. What about movies that weren't about the war? Was there anything else worth watching in the 1940s?
One charming and heartwarming film from this era is Miracle on 34th Street. This Christmas classic tells the story of Kris Kringle, an old man who claims to be the real Santa Claus, and the impact he has on those who believe in him.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. It's a feel-good movie for the whole family. Did it win Best Picture?
It didn't win Best Picture, but it did win 3 Academy Awards, including Best Actor for Edmund Gwynn as Kris Kringle. It's a testament to the enduring power of hope and belief, especially during the holiday season.
All right, let's jump to the 1950s. What kind of movies were winning over the Academy in that decade?
The 1950s saw the rise of Technicolor and widescreen formats, ushering in a new era of visual spectacle in cinema. One film that took full advantage of these advancements was An American in Paris, a musical starring Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron.
I'm not a big fan of musicals, but I've heard that one's pretty good. What's it about?
It follows an American veteran who decides to stay in Paris after World War II to pursue his dream of becoming a painter. He falls in love with a French woman, and the film unfolds against the backdrop of a vibrant and romantic Paris. It's a visual feast with stunning dance sequences choreographed by Gene Kelly himself and a memorable score by George Gershwin.
So basically a big, colorful spectacle. Sounds like something my grandma would enjoy. What other Best Picture winners stood out in the 1950s?
One groundbreaking film from this era is On the Waterfront, directed by Elia Kazan and starring Marlon Brando. This gritty crime drama set on the New York City docks explores themes of union corruption and individual responsibility.
Marlon Brando, eh? Wasn't he a big-time actor back then?
He was a true icon. His performance as Terry Malloy, a former boxer turned dock worker who becomes entangled in a web of corruption and violence, is considered one of the most powerful and influential performances in film history. The film itself was a critical and commercial success, winning 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture Director for Kazan, Actor for Brando, and Supporting Actress for Eva Marie Saint.
So a critical darling and a box office hit. Not bad. What other notable Best Picture winners came out of the 1950s?
One of the biggest blockbusters of all time, Ben-Hur, dominated the Academy Awards in 1959, winning an unprecedented 11 awards, a record that stood for decades. It's an epic historical drama set in ancient Rome telling the story of Judah Ben-Hur, a Jewish prince who is falsely accused of treason by his Roman friend Messala and sentenced to slavery.
I've heard of that one. It's famous for that crazy chariot race scene, right?
Absolutely. The chariot race is a cinematic landmark known for its breathtaking action and impressive scale. But the film is more than just spectacle. It's a story about betrayal, revenge, and ultimately redemption.
Sounds like a classic revenge flick with a historical twist. All right, that wraps up the 1950s. What about the swinging 60s? What kind of movies were winning Best Picture in that era?
The 1960s were a time of immense social and cultural upheaval, and cinema reflected these changing times. One film that captured the spirit of the era was West Side Story, a musical adaptation of Romeo and Juliet set amidst the rivalry of 2 street gangs, the Sharks and the Jets in New York City.
Oh yeah, that's the one with the Sharks and the Jets, right? When you're a jet all the way.
That's the one. The film's innovative choreography, memorable score by Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim, and powerful themes of prejudice and intolerance made it a critical and commercial triumph. It won 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Director for Robert Wise and Jerome Robbins.
10 Oscars. Damn, that's impressive. What other notable Best Picture winners came out of the 1960s.
Another groundbreaking film from this era is Lawrence of Arabia, a sweeping epic that tells the true story of T.E. Lawrence, a British officer who played a key role in the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire during World War I.
I've seen bits and pieces of that one. It's got some amazing desert scenery, right?
The cinematography by Freddie Young is absolutely stunning. The film captures the vastness and beauty of the Arabian desert in a way that had never been seen before. But the film is also a complex character study of Lawrence himself, a man caught between two worlds struggling to understand his own identity and motivations.
So basically a classic war movie with some stunning visuals and a thought-provoking story. Sounds right up my alley.
It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Director for David Lean.
7 Oscars. Not too shabby. What other films made a splash in the 1960s?
One film that took a decidedly different approach was Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Released in 1964, this black comedy tackled the very serious subject of nuclear war and the absurdity of Cold War politics.
Stanley Kubrick, yeah. That guy made some pretty messed up films.
He did, and Dr. Strangelove is no exception. It's a satire, but a very dark one, with moments of genuine tension and horror. It features iconic performances from Peter Sellers, who plays 3 distinct characters, including the titular Dr. Strangelove, a former Nazi scientist now advising the American president.
So basically a comedy about the end of the world. Sound a bit morbid, but I'm intrigued.
It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Director. It's a film that, despite its comedic elements, forces us to confront the terrifying reality of the nuclear age.
4 nominations is nothing to sneeze at. What other films made a mark in the 1960s?
One film that continues to capture the hearts of audiences worldwide is The Sound of Music, a musical based on the true story of the Von Trapp family singers. It stars Julie Andrews as Maria, a young woman who becomes a governess to the 7 children of widowed Captain Georg Von Trapp, played by Christopher Plummer.
Oh yeah, The Sound of Music. That's a classic. Who doesn't love a good sing-along?
The film is set in Austria on the eve of World War II and follows the family's daring escape from Nazi-occupied Austria. It's a story about hope, resilience, and the power of music to unite and inspire. Its memorable songs, heartwarming story, and beautiful Austrian scenery have made it a beloved classic. It won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Director for Robert Wise.
5 Oscars. Sounds like a family favorite and an Academy darling.
It is. The Sound of Music continues to be one of the most popular musicals of all time. It's a testament to the power of storytelling to transcend generations and cultures.
All right, deep divers, that's a wrap on the 1960s. We've covered a lot of ground, from war epics to musicals to dark comedies. We've seen films that reflected the social and political upheavals of the decade, and films that offered pure escapism and entertainment.
It's fascinating to see how the Best Picture winners of the 1960s captured the anxieties and aspirations of a decade marked by profound change and uncertainty.
Absolutely. And we're not done yet. After a quick break, we'll delve into the 1970s, a decade that brought us some of the most iconic and groundbreaking films in cinematic history. Get ready for a wild ride.
The 1970s was a wild decade for film. Hollywood was shaking off the old studio system, and a new generation of filmmakers was emerging with bold visions and a willingness to push boundaries. One film that exemplifies this shift is The French Connection, a gritty crime thriller based on a true story. It follows 2 New York City detectives as they try to take down a drug smuggling ring, and it's got this incredible car chase scene under the elevated train that's become legendary.
Yeah, I've heard about that car chase. It's supposed to be one of the most intense ever filmed.
It's absolutely gripping. The way director William Friedkin shot it, you feel like you're right there in the car with Gene Hackman's character Popeye Doyle as he's careening through the streets of New York. The film won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Friedkin.
5 Oscars, huh? That's
Yeah.
pretty impressive for a cop thriller.
Well, you can't talk about 1970s cinema without mentioning The Godfather. It's one of those films that just redefined its genre, in this case, the gangster film. It follows the Corleone family, a powerful mafia clan, and it's as much a family drama as it is a crime epic.
The Godfather, huh? That's a classic. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Who hasn't heard that line?
It's one of the most iconic lines in film history, and it perfectly captures the blend of charm and menace that defines Don Vito Corleone, played brilliantly by Marlon Brando. The film itself is a masterpiece with stunning cinematography by Gordon Willis and a haunting score by Nino Rota. It won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay for Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo, the author of the novel the film is based on.
3 Oscars, and it spawned about 1 million imitators. Did any of the sequels win anything?
The Godfather Part 2 actually won 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. It's one of the few sequels that not only lives up to the original, but arguably surpasses it. It tells 2 parallel stories: the rise of young Vito Corleone in the early 1900s, and Michael Corleone's descent into darkness as he consolidates his power as the head of the family.
So they went with that prequel-sequel thing. Clever.
Yeah.
What else from the 70s should we be talking about?
Let's not forget Star Wars. It wasn't a Best Picture winner, but it was nominated and won 6 other awards, including Best Original Score for John Williams.
Star Wars. Come on, everybody's seen Star Wars.
I know it's almost too obvious to mention, but Star Wars was a game changer. It ushered in the era of the blockbuster, and its impact on special effects merchandising and just the overall cultural landscape is undeniable. It's also a damn good movie, even if it's a bit cheesy at times.
Fine, you win. Star Wars was a big deal. Anything else that stands out from that decade?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is another one that deserves a mention. It's set in a mental institution and stars Jack Nicholson as Randall McMurphy, a rebellious inmate who clashes with the tyrannical nurse Ratched, played by Louise Fletcher.
Jack Nicholson is a mental patient. I bet that was a trip.
It's an incredible performance, both funny and deeply disturbing. The film explores themes of individuality, conformity, and the abuse of power. It was a massive critical and commercial success, winning all 5 major Academy Awards: Best Picture Director, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay.
Another clean sweep, huh?
Yeah.
The Academy sure loved that one. What else do we need to know about the 1970s?
Annie Hall is another important film from this era. It's a romantic comedy drama directed by Woody Allen, and it stars Allen as Alvy Singer, a neurotic comedian who reflects on his failed relationship with the free-spirited Annie Hall, played by Diane Keaton.
Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Didn't he marry his stepdaughter? That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that whole situation was a mess, and it's definitely overshadowed his legacy. But Annie Hall is a brilliant film regardless of Allen's personal life. It's funny, insightful, and heartbreakingly honest about the complexities of love and relationships. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture Director, Original Screenplay, and Best Actress for Diane Keaton.
Okay, let's wrap up the 70s and move on to the 1980s. What was happening in the world of film during that decade?
The 80s were interesting. You had this mix of big-budget blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future, and then you had these more character-driven dramas and comedies that were also winning awards. One film that captured the zeitgeist was Chariots of Fire, a British historical drama about 2 athletes competing in the 1924 Olympics.
I vaguely remember that one. It's got that slow-motion running scene on the beach, right?
That's the one. It's set to Vangelis's iconic electronic score, and it's become one of the most parodied scenes in film history. But the film itself is more than just that one scene. It's about ambition, faith, and the pursuit of excellence. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
So, a feel-good sports movie with some historical flair.
Yep.
What else was big in the 80s?
Well, we can't talk about the 80s without mentioning Steven Spielberg again. E.T. the Extraterrestrial was a phenomenon. It was the highest-grossing film of all time for a while, and it captured the imaginations of kids and adults alike.
E.T., come on, that's a kid's movie.
It's more than just a kid's movie. It's a story about friendship, loneliness, and the wonder of discovery. And let's be honest, who doesn't get a little choked up when E.T. says, E.T. phone home?
Okay, maybe it's a little more than just a kid's movie. What else was going on?
Oliver Stone's Platoon was a major film of the 80s. It's a Vietnam War drama based on Stone's own experiences, and it offers a brutal and unflinching look at the horrors of war.
Oliver Stone, huh? Always a controversial figure.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to push buttons. But Platoon is a powerful film, and it won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Stone.
4 Oscars.
Yeah.
Not bad for a war movie.
Yeah.
Anything else from the 80s that we should know about?
Rain Man was a big hit. It stars Dustin Hoffman as Raymond Babbitt, an autistic savant who inherits a fortune, and Tom Cruise as his brother Charlie, who learns to connect with Raymond in unexpected ways.
I've seen that one. It's a heartwarming story about 2 brothers who learn to understand and appreciate each other.
Exactly. And Hoffman gives an incredible performance as Raymond. He won the Oscar for Best Actor, and the film also won Best Picture, Best Director for Barry Levinson, and Best Original Screenplay.
So a critical darling and a box office success. What else did the 80s have to offer?
One more film I'd like to mention is Driving Miss Daisy. It's a story about an unlikely friendship between Miss Daisy Worthen, a wealthy Jewish widow played by Jessica Tandy, and Hope Colburn, her African-American chauffeur, played by Morgan Freeman.
Sounds like a heartwarming story about bridging racial and social divides.
It is, and it's handled with a lot of sensitivity and humor. The film won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actress for Jessica Tandy, who, at 80 years old, became the oldest person to win an acting Oscar.
So there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the world of the Academy Awards and the coveted Best Picture Award. We've explored the history, the winners, the snubs, and the controversies that have shaped this prestigious award.
From the silent era to the modern blockbuster, we've seen how cinema has evolved and how the Academy has recognized the films that have pushed boundaries, captured our imaginations, and left an indelible mark on our culture.
It's been a wild ride through cinematic history, and it just goes to show that the power of film to move us, inspire us, and make us think is as strong as ever.
So keep watching, keep exploring, and keep those conversations about film going.
And until next time, deep divers, stay curious.